I will with you tonight. If you do not touch me, I will marry you. A love story filled with passion, intensity, and an unexpected challenge. I promise it will touch your heart deeply. Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories, my dear family. Before we begin, please join me in a heartfelt prayer. Heavenly Father, please bless everyone listening to this story. Grant them happiness, peace, and guide them toward finding their true love. Amen. My beautiful family, please don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Your support means everything to me. And now, let's step into a fresh morning on the bustling streets of Chicago, where destiny is quietly about to unfold. Morning sunlight spilled across the bustling streets of Chicago as Emma Walker stepped off the silver bus. She pulled her coat tighter and tilted her head upward, taking in the towering glass building ahead, the place where a brand new chapter of her life would begin. Raised in the quiet town of Maple Hill, where neighbors had known each other for generations, Emma had always dreamed of a bigger world, one where possibilities weren't limited by geography or tradition. While her childhood friends chose stability and stayed close to home, Emma spent late nights reading books, sketching ideas, and nurturing the hope that one day she'd work in the creative industry she so deeply admired. And today, that hope had become reality. Emma was set to start her new job at Grant Creative Group, one of the most prestigious media firms in the country, known not only for its innovative campaigns, but also for its enigmatic and magnetic CEO, Lucas Grant. Emma never believed in fairy tale romances. She believed in hard work, in ambition, and most of all, in standing on her own. But what she didn't yet know was that this city, cold, fast-paced, and unforgiving, would soon challenge those beliefs. And in doing so, it would also introduce her to a kind of love powerful enough to change everything. A new beginning, a strange city, and a man no one ever thought could change. The lobby of Grant Creative Group buzzed with the controlled chaos of a weekday morning. Emma stepped inside, eyes wide with wonder and just a touch of nervousness. Professionals in tailored clothes moved with precision. Conversations hummed in the air. Heels clicked against polished marble floors. She felt like she had entered an entirely different world. As she waited near the elevator, Emma felt someone's gaze on her. She turned slightly and saw a man walking through the glass doors. Tall, composed, dark brown hair neatly trimmed, eyes sharp and assessing as if he could see straight through people. It was Lucas Grant. Lucas hadn't planned to notice anyone this morning. As usual, his mind was occupied with strategies, campaigns, and back-to-back meetings. But the moment his eyes landed on the quiet young woman by the elevator, something in him paused. It wasn't because she was strikingly beautiful, though there was an undeniable grace about her, but because of the calmness she carried, the subtle clarity in her expression, something that felt entirely out of place in a city like this. Their eyes met for only a few seconds, but to Lucas it felt like a silent question, not timid, not expectant, and certainly not seeking approval the way so many others did. The elevator doors opened. They stepped in together. No words exchanged, just a silence laced with something unspoken, a moment that felt like the start of something neither could quite name yet. Emma exited first. Lucas remained, watching her go. And in that quiet, unfamiliar flicker of curiosity, a thought rose unexpectedly in his mind. Who is she? In her first days at the company, Emma threw herself into work. She learned quickly, observed carefully, took notes on the smallest details, and never showed a hint of being overwhelmed, though everything around her was brand new. Her colleagues noticed her professionalism and eagerness, but one person noticed her more than anyone else: Lucas Grant. Lucas couldn't explain why he was so drawn to Emma. He had met hundreds, maybe thousands of beautiful women in his field. They were bold, charming, ambitious, but Emma was different. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't seek his attention. Her calm demeanor and quiet distance felt like an unspoken rejection, and somehow that made her all the more captivating. He began creating work opportunities to interact with her, inviting her to strategic meetings, asking for her input on upcoming projects. Emma saw through it but said nothing. She remained polite, professional, and always kept their interactions strictly work-related. Occasionally, Lucas would appear in the company cafeteria during lunch. casually choosing a seat near her. He'd ask seemingly innocent questions about city life and then truly listen to her answers. Emma, though she tried to remain composed, couldn't help the warmth she felt when she caught him watching her, or the flutter in her chest when their fingers accidentally brushed while exchanging documents. She didn't know what this was. A passing interest? A game? Or something deeper neither of them dared to name, but she did know one thing. Lucas Grant was approaching her, not with power, not with charm, but with a patience she hadn't expected from a man like him. A few weeks into Emma's new role, Lucas invited her to attend a company-hosted charity event, a gala fundraiser for rural education initiatives. The invitation was presented professionally with careful wording. Emma hesitated for a while before agreeing, under one clear condition. "I'm going for work, not for you." That evening, Emma arrived wearing a deep blue dress, simple yet elegant. As she stepped into the grand hall, eyes turned toward her, not because she sparkled like the others, but because of the quiet grace she carried into a room filled with glittering lights and practiced compliments. Lucas, in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, greeted her with a look that was different from his usual confidence. Softer, almost cautious. Throughout the night, he refrained from showing off, from charming in the way people expected. Instead, he stayed by her side, introduced her to important guests, and listened, truly listened, when she spoke. When a slow melody began to play, he offered her his hand for a dance. She nodded. As they moved together, Lucas kept a respectful distance, his touch light, as though he were holding something fragile, not trying to possess it. Later that night, they stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The breeze was gentle, the world hushed. Lucas turned to her, voice low and quiet. "Thank you for coming. You made this night different." Emma met his gaze, calm but searching. "Why did you really invite me, Lucas?" He paused before answering. "Because you don't look at me the way others do. You don't see the reputation or the money. You see me." A silence fell between them. Then Lucas took a small step closer, his eyes softening. "I want to kiss you." Emma didn't step back, but she didn't move closer either. Her reply was slow, firm. "I'm not part of your collection, Lucas. I'm not another chapter in your story." For the first time, Lucas had no clever response, only respect in his eyes, and something else, something breaking open inside the man who thought he already knew everything there was to know about women. As time passed, the connection between Emma and Lucas grew undeniable. Though they maintained professionalism at the office, no one could ignore the way Lucas paid attention to her. He didn't just listen, he remembered the little things, her favorite pastry, the book she was reading, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when deep in thought, became details he quietly cherished. Then, on a crisp autumn evening, Lucas invited her to dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet alley. No paparazzi, no lavish setting, just the two of them, a bottle of red wine, and conversations that drifted toward childhood memories, family, and truths no one had ever asked before. As they strolled beneath the soft glow of old street lamps, Lucas stopped and looked at her with quiet seriousness. "Emma, no one has ever made me want to change the way you do." She turned to him, her eyes no longer cold like the first time they met. "And you think that's enough for me to trust you?" "I don't expect you to trust me overnight," he replied, "but I want to walk beside you, not to conquer, but to prove I'm worthy." Weeks later, Lucas proposed. No grand gestures, no headlines, just a vintage ring, sincere eyes, and a quiet promise. "I want to spend the rest of my life loving you the right way." Emma didn't answer at first. Then she spoke, slowly but firmly. "If you truly love me, prove it. Tomorrow night, I will be with you. If you do not touch me, I will marry you." Lucas froze. "Emma, you're testing me?" "No," she said calmly. "I'm testing your love and your character." He nodded. No excuses, no pleading. He understood. This wasn't just a challenge for their relationship. It was his last chance to prove that the man she was choosing was no longer the man he used to be. That night, Lucas failed the test. Just one unconscious moment, a gentle touch on Emma's waist as she shifted in her sleep, was enough to break the vow he had promised to keep. Emma left at dawn. No tears, no anger, just eyes filled with quiet disappointment and a soft whisper, "I had hoped." Lucas remained in his apartment, stunned by his own weakness. For the first time in his life, it wasn't rejection he felt. It was the crushing realization that he had lost something he never truly had, a chance to love and be loved, for real. But this time, he didn't try to win her back with gifts, scripted apologies, or grand romantic gestures. Instead, he did the only honest thing he could. He wrote. Every morning, he left a handwritten letter at Emma's door. No flowers, no logos, just white paper, black ink, and thoughts straight from the heart. Today, I realized I've been taught how to win at everything except love, because love isn't something you conquer, it's something you earn. I grew up in a world where men weren't allowed to be weak, but loving you made me realize real weakness is being too afraid to face who you really are. Emma read each letter. At first she skimmed them, but slowly, word by word, line by line, her heart began to soften. He wasn't trying to convince her that he had changed. He was showing her, through every thought, every admitted flaw, every humbled hope. After more than 3 weeks, on a late afternoon, Lucas sat in the park writing his 25th letter when a familiar figure appeared. Emma. She stood silently for a moment, then sat down beside him, gently but firmly. "We need to talk." They sat together in silence, the park bathed in golden light. No rush, no need for long explanations. After a few moments, Emma spoke. "Your letters, they weren't about getting me back. They were about finding yourself again, and that, Lucas, means more than any apology ever could." Lucas looked at her, eyes no longer pleading, only honest. "You showed me the man I could become, and I won't go back to who I was, whether you forgive me or not." Emma nodded softly. Then, like a quiet breeze, she said, "I want to offer the test again, but this time not to test you, to help you know yourself better." Lucas wasn't surprised. He didn't tremble, just a slow, steady nod. "I accept." That night, Emma returned to his apartment. As before, she entered the bedroom, bringing nothing with her but trust. Lucas lay beside her, fully clothed, over the top of the covers. No touching, no closeness, just quietly listening to her even breathing, as if guarding something sacred. All night, he didn't move, even when his hand trembled, even when she accidentally brushed against him. Lucas kept his promise. As dawn slipped in through the window, Emma opened her eyes and turned to him. He was still awake. "You didn't touch me," she whispered. Lucas smiled. No pride, no rush. "Not because I didn't want to, but because for the first time, I know what it means to love someone more than myself." In that moment, both of them understood they were no longer just navigating attraction or apology. They had crossed into something far more meaningful, a shared journey ahead. They stayed in silence for a while, her head resting gently on his chest. No words, just a knowing. And when Emma finally said, "Let's begin again," Lucas didn't hesitate. 1 week later, they got married. Not a fairy tale wedding, no beaded gown, no orchestra or elaborate speeches, just two people standing before a city clerk, exchanging vows that came from somewhere deeper. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to choose me every day, especially when it's not easy. I can't promise things will always be smooth, but I promise not to walk away when they're hard." After the ceremony, they returned to the apartment, once a place where Lucas had eaten silent dinners alone, now transformed into a home where two hearts moved in unison. Emma stepped into the bedroom, evening light brushing against her skin like a gentle blessing. She turned to see the man leaning against the doorway. No longer Lucas Grant, powerful CEO, but the husband she had chosen. She walked toward him, took his hand, and placed it over her heart. I waited to be yours, she said, not in a reckless night, but in the quiet acceptance of grown-up love. That night, they made love. No more tests, no more barriers, only unity, whispered promises, gentle touches, the kind of love you have to grow into to fully understand. And the next morning, as Emma woke in Lucas's arms, she softly said, "Good morning, my husband." Lucas kissed her forehead, his voice calm and sure. "Good morning, forever starts today." They didn't talk about the past anymore. There was nothing left to prove. What mattered most wasn't what they'd survived. It was the decision to love each other every single day, with kindness, patience, and devotion. Not the ending of a fairy tale, but the beginning of something real. 3 months after the wedding, life with Emma and Lucas moved like a soft melody. Not dramatic, not loud, but full of warmth. They still worked, still held hands during rushed mornings, still ate dinner together at the little wooden table, where ordinary stories became more precious than the finest wine. Lucas was no longer the man who slept at the office for deadlines, and Emma no longer stayed up alone with notebooks and plans. They had learned to slow down, to sit together, to truly listen, as if every shared moment was a way to fall in love all over again. One quiet Saturday afternoon, Emma stood in the bathroom, gripping the pregnancy test in trembling hands. Her heart pounded so fast it nearly stole her breath. When 2 faint pink lines appeared, her tears fell, not from fear, but from a joy too big for words. She stepped out, finding Lucas reading on the sofa. She didn't say anything. She simply handed him the tiny stick. Lucas looked at it, then up at her. His eyes, first stunned, then overflowing with happiness. He didn't speak, just pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "We're going to have a baby." Emma nodded, tears mixing with her smile. "And I believe this child will grow up in a home full of real love." Lucas leaned down and kissed her forehead. The place that once held worry now filled only with peace. They didn't know what the future would bring, but they knew one thing for sure. Love doesn't end with "I do." True love begins when 2 people choose each other day after day to welcome the most beautiful gift life can offer. And this was only the beginning of everything they had once only dared to hope for.